Hey, Dan, thank you for coming in. You got a really remarkable background of entrepreneurship and success and enablement, all involving technology. You've been recognized with accolades like the Lifetime Achievement Award from WITSA, the Peacock Man of the Year Award, various state government honors. It's just success after success after success, and then continuing contributions as CEO of this amazing organization. For thank you for coming in and sharing the insights with my audience.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's obviously behind what you read, there's a lot of hard work and a lot of failures, a lot of trials and tribulations. And it's just, you think of it as you're reaching milestone after milestone, but it's a continuous journey. So it may seem like I've been around for a long time, but our industry is so exciting. It feels like, hey, I'm just starting out again, and the future is so bright. I really feel like I have to wear shades. It's a wonderful industry to be in, and I'm excited truly to be here with you. Thank you.
Dan, you got this remarkable history, and it's really just simply amazing. It's a North Star for the world. It's a model. Your organization is a model for the world. Everybody should support it. So, what were the inflection points in your life? And it could have been when you were 3 or 5 in your family, it could have been mentors, something happened in school, in your career. Maybe three inflection points that created this wonderful person you are today and the amazing contributions you're doing.
Oh, yeah. All right. I think the first thing that comes to mind is in high school. So back then, computers were, well, they're the mainframe computers. So obviously, small young kids couldn't afford them. But in high school, I had a scientific calculator. It was a Casio. I remember that one. And you could program that little Casio to do amazing things. And that captivated me and made me want to going into computer programming. And so that was, I would say, inflection point number one. It was so fascinating and exciting that I wanted to be involved in computers. Except that when I went to university and did engineering, all I had that was available was Fortran that was taught to me. And my lecturer said, here's a challenge. Everybody else can do bubble sort, write a program to do bubble sort, but the creative ones may want to try something more challenging. Here's your challenge. Create a game. At that point, a mastermind game was popular, and I took the challenge. And I used Fortran to did my first computer game to play mastermind. So that got me hooked. So inflection point number two, I think, was when I decided that entrepreneurship was going to be a key thing I was going to pursue. I could, work for people, and I did initially, but then entrepreneurship came around at the time of the dot-com boom. So that was the heydays. It was the internet. It was exciting. There was this saying that you sleep like a baby 2 hours and then you wake up crying. So there was the internet, the boom and the bust. I had my first startup. I sold it to a Nasdaq listed company. So that was truly exciting. So inflection point number two came right after I went with some friends. We did an IPO, and then there was a trade sale. That was exciting as well. I think the third inflection point came when I went to Silicon Valley and lived there for 4 5 years. And got to know many startup entrepreneurs, the ecosystem in Silicon Valley, the VCs, the paying it forward mentality. And it opened up my mind to the wonderful things that could accrue and happen when creative minds come together, when diversity are collide and birth these wonderful creations that are entrepreneurs and that drive new businesses. And through that, it also made me discover the beauty behind, scale ups and building up companies so that they can grow globally and deliver impact that way.
I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, I remember those programmable calculators. I used to have a Texas Instruments, which you could also program, and so those early days of curiosity and being able to uh, enact change through these small devices and got you interested in programming, and then you created a game, right? You got challenged because you had this interest in program development, and you created this game, which again is very entrepreneurial. And then you end up involved in a startup, and you had a great exit, and then you spent time at Silicon Valley, which is sort of still the heart of innovation, though now it's becoming more democratized. I would say it's spread around the world, but at that time, really kind of the center of thinking in that way. So that's a remarkable history, and I could see all of these elements. Was your family really interested in the sciences, or were you kind of like the outlier in your family, and you're interested in science?
I would say I was the maverick and the outlier, although there is a deep interest in science, but not so much in the computational engineering fields. But for example, my younger brother is a cardiothoracic surgeon. So obviously science is a key part of that. But it's more not so much in the engineering computational areas. And my other elder brother went into the same field as I did. In the end, I think tech drew us all together, tech and entrepreneurship. But yeah, there is that healthy interest. And now my eldest daughter is from a legal field, but works in the fintech industry. So yeah, we have a family that is very interested in creating impact through entrepreneurship.
Well, you're definitely weaving all of this entrepreneurship, and you mentioned bubble swords. I remember that as well. In fact, I date back when they were still like vacuum tubes, and computing circuits were like JK flip flops, where you had individual transistors and really small, only a few transistors on a semiconductor. So it sounds like we have a similar kind of background in terms of history and interests. So, how did you get involved with this WITSA organization? So, a lot of people I don't think are aware of WITSA, or at least the people that I've been talking to. But yet, it's a great organization. Can you give some history to WITSA, what its purpose is, and it's an amazing organization. So, to kind of bring people up to date on this World Innovation Technology Services Alliance.
Yeah, so in 1978, so are organizations that are national in nature. So tech industry associations, back then they were computer associations, they were industry, ICT industry associations from different countries. So that's been around for a while. So national industry associations typically are formed by industry organizations, corporations that come together because it makes sense to either lobby for support or to remove taxation, to make conditions more friendly to the industry as a whole, and or to influence policy. So this has been going around for a long time, except that around about 1978, a number of these global organizations, the US was a prime mover, Japan was another key one, Taiwan, Canada, the UK, Australia, etc., came together and said, hey, we need to create a global alliance because our industry is global and it's not just within the borders of our nations. So that transpired. And what came out of that was WITSA. So the early days, it was to create a platform called the World Congress on Information Technology that then became Innovation and Technology. So it was create this platform for the organizations, the industry to come together and bring great speakers, great content, share policies, best practices, so that the world can benefit from what's happening in hotspots so that others can then follow up. And that was 46 years ago. That platform then grew larger and larger. And eventually, 80 countries and economies today are members of WITSA. So my involvement with WITSA came after my entrepreneurship days were over. I had my exits, and I was keen to then do some to pay for it, to give back a little bit, and pay it forward and do things that are beyond what I was doing. And so it makes sense for me. I competed for, and I contributed and I was elected as chairman of WITSA in the year 2008. And then from there, 2022, I became the CEO when the Secretary General, Dr. Jim Poison, retired. So WITSA today is 9 catalytic platforms. Its main one, which is the World Congress on Innovation and Technology, the WCIT, is entering its 27th edition. And this year, WCIT 2024 will be held in Yerevan, Armenia. So we are all excited. This is our second time host. And, with AI, artificial intelligence, at the forefront of everything, this is going to be the core theme that will drive a lot of the discussions and the content, as well as the great energy and people that will be there this year.
So, I'm based in North America. I think CTA is your U.S. rep, right? And NASCOM is your Indian rep.
That's right. Yes.
So those.
Our member in the U.S. is the Consumer Tech Association, and they annually host the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, a huge event. So they are our member. So we typically take one member per country or economy. So in the U.S., it's CTA, so NASCOM. In India, in Japan, GISA. In Australia, AIIA. Or in the UK, Tech UK, et cetera, et cetera. So the latest member to join us is from Somalia.
That's amazing. That's great, right? So you're diversifying and spreading the word. Now, the industry associations are representing companies within that country, but also government stakeholders as well. Who are part of the industry associations within each country?
So typically, the largest corporations are represented as members in these tech associations. So, like for example, in the U.S., CTA represents the companies, the biggest and largest of them, whether it be a Meta or a Microsoft or Google, and also the small and medium-sized businesses. In fact, I think the majority of the companies that are members tend to be small and medium-sized businesses, whereas obviously there are only so many tech giants, but they are the ones that are recognized. And this we see is replicated across tech industry associations from different parts of the world. So we have only 80 members, 80 countries and economies, but each member in turn has hundreds, if not thousands, of member companies, corporations. And these are the normal, ordinary members. Government tends to come in not as members, but they would be associates, or they would typically be partners.
That's interesting. And because I work with governments a lot, so I'm thinking different governments would be great partners in working with really, you're the world's largest World Innovation Technology Services Alliance. You're really the de facto really center point for industry globally, and governments are very much interested in public-private sort of partnerships and doing endeavors. How about nonprofits? Like I'm part of IEEE, I'm part of, which is the world's largest technology engineering organization. I do a lot for them. In fact, I have 3 keynotes coming up that I'm doing for them. I'm also part of ACM. We have a board called the Practitioner Board. I'm past chair, being a board member for 13, 14 years, and I chair some of the board, or on the board committees, and I chair a board committee. IFIP, which is a federation of computing organizations. Do you have any interest in having these nonprofit, or are some of these nonprofits part of like affiliates or partners of WITSA?
So yeah, we have partnership relationships with a number of organizations, either regional or global. So these tend to be the ones that we've had past working relationships with, ranging from the UN to the WTO, OECD, or ICANN, UNTAD, or the regional organizations that are representative of the industry. For example, in the Asian Oceanian region, Associo is a partner of ours. In the South American marketplace, Aleti, or in the African space, Aficta, or in Europe, Digital Europe. So quite a number of these we work with on a regular basis, and sure, we can expand and have more partners, and we're always on the lookout. Yeah. All voices are important.
I mean, there would be some kind of a membership fee for affiliates or nonprofits. Is there a fee as well, or how does that work?
Typically, it's that's not the we're not financed primarily from these fees. So yeah, it's a small fee. It's basically to make sure that there's some skin in the game, but we are not driven. We are ourselves a nonprofit. So our funding comes primarily from the platforms that we create, whether it's the World Congress on Innovation and Technology or key sponsorships that come from major organizations for the work that we do.
That's really, really fascinating. I mean, I've been talking to some CEO organizations, and I mentioned who are organizations or entities, so institutional organizations of CEOs, and I've mentioned your organization, and there's some interest. So what I'll do is I'll take this all separately and maybe join Emily, who's involved with your program, with some of the CEO groups that I work with, and maybe they'd be interested in joining as affiliates of your WITSA platform. Right? So that's
Of them as well. So I think, yeah, we can do many more things together. There's, yeah, so much to pursue, and we want to be partners so that whether there are mutually beneficial win-win positions that we take. For example, we just last night we had a webinar on a readout on the WTO MC13 ministerial meeting in Abu Dhabi, and that was joined by our member in the US, CTA, as well as the Semiconductor Industry Association, SIA. So, and that is obviously important because it's about tariffs, it's about e-commerce, it's about will governments put tariffs on data flow, on the transfer of key technologies. So it impacts trade, it impacts commerce, it impacts not just our core industry, but because our industry powers so much of the global commerce, it impacts everyone.
Would you then be, do you produce papers, white papers, or things like that, or policy papers, or there's so much interest in AI and machine learning, especially with the large foundation models. Maybe the more common term that people are familiar with are, these generative AI models. Do you have working groups at all, or things like that, or do you leave that to your member associations to do working groups on maybe some guidance on guardrails or the ethical issues and so on?
We do both. So obviously, when our member associations have their positions, so where those connect with the ones that we globalized, so we tend to amplify them. For example, when like key things that are done in the UK or in the EU or in Australia or the US or in Asia concerning AI, then we see what makes sense. Some of them we amplify via our networks, but others we take on as signatories, as signers, and so we may drive some, we may facilitate others, and then advocate for a few of them. So, for example, we in October last year, we released a position paper on AI that calls for ethical, inclusive, sustainable, and innovative use of artificial intelligence, because it's important. And we've released a position paper, a WITSA position paper. And in the past, we have on trade, on aspects of cross-border facilitation, etc. And we amplify that of our members as well. So yes, we have a policy team.
It's interesting. You work with the UN. Do you work with people like the World IP Organization with Darren? He's the Director General. I can see a lot of synergy. I was just at a CEO conference in Geneva about a week and a half ago, and I was a keynote, but he was one of the keynotes. But I could tell from his keynote that what you do, there'd be a lot of synergy. So they're the I didn't know this. They're the only UN agency that's self-funded. So, and because they're involved with innovation and collectively on innovation and working together globally on innovation and IP regarding innovation, I'm thinking they'd be a great partner. And when I talked to him afterwards, he indicated, hey, if there's anybody you know that would be interested in partnering with us, or we'd be interested in partnering with them. So I'm thinking that's a natural. Another one would be ITU. They're about 160 years old now. But they have a standardization bureau. So they have all of these working groups working on standards in different areas, and they've expanded into all sorts of areas that are related to, well, I would say, I guess they're all related to technology in some way. Do you have relationships with those two UN agencies?
Yeah, so we can do more, but ITU for sure. And in fact, we just had a call, and we were talking about how the AI for Good program that you chair it has become so big and has grown by leaps and bounds. So we can do more for sure. And I would say that right now we're constrained by obviously limited funding, and we can always have more. But within the context of what our membership wants and what's important to them, we try to do as much as possible. But yeah, we can always do more.
Do you have positions then? I guess you would have, can you talk about personal positions or views you have on trends? But because you have the CEO position, then maybe it makes it difficult. Are you able to, because this is unscripted, are you able to kind of give your personal views together with your CEO views, and maybe we do two tracks or not?
I'll try. I'll try not to conflate the two different positions if they're different at all, and hopefully they are consistent. I would not want to be in a position where my professional views have to be different from my personal views.
Okay, let's keep it simple then. Let's just do your CEO views as a CEO of WITSA. And there's this convergence and confluence of amazing technology. So AI machine learning is one. Biomedical innovation, which is driven by computational breakthroughs. In fact, AlphaFold 3 was released, which could do RNA, DNA ligands together with protein modeling. So it's just an amazing breakthrough. Supercomputers have gone exascale, right? Which is a billion operations per second. Quantum computing or quantum inspired technologies that are out there. I would say even analog is coming back into the forefront of recognition, especially hybrid systems, combining all of these things. Chip technologies, of course, are amazingly progressing to what maybe sub 2 nanometer, but also on the edge, and incorporating AI. So let's address each one of those areas. What are your views as a CEO? What's about quantum computing, and where do you think that's going?
Oh, obviously it's a critical, we're at a critical juncture. Moore's law and all these limitations that we will at some point have to be faced with. Silicon can take us so far only. So yeah, I personally am excited by all of these developments, but I think the taking the macro view is important for us to understand where we are at and at which juncture. Because I've seen, and I'm sure since we are in the same, I think, generation, we've seen how wonderful technologies have come from, the personal computer to the internet to the PC, and obviously today artificial intelligence is the catchphrase for a lot of things that it will. I see of it as the tip of the spear, but the spear itself is not just the tip. It has the stock and the feathers at the end and the bow as well. So it's an entire ecosystem, so to speak. Meaning that the wonderful things that AI leads us to has to be powered by whether it's the 2 nanometer or chipset designs or quantum computing or AI at the edge, etc. All of these technologies I think are exciting. The crucial thing is, I believe, is that we must think about what key factors would have to be in place for technology to drive towards greater and greater innovation. So in that sense, then I do believe that the instrument is important, meaning the infrastructure. In that sense, then whether it's GPU powered supercomputers, whether it is the data center or the chip design, as well as the algos, etc. I think that provide the infrastructure, and I think the entrepreneurs will be able to find new business models, will create new use cases in different verticals, whether it's in healthcare or ag tech or in fintech, etc. We are the cusp of greater and greater discoveries and at a hyper speed as well. So wonderful things are happening, Stephen.
And you're really at the center. I mean, your members would be at the center of all of this innovation, right? Because they're driving it in essence, and they're funding it, and they're looking for positive use cases for it, and then enabling its distribution throughout the world. Excuse me. What are your views of technology adoption so that it's more evenly distributed? Are there programs within WITSA to ensure that that there's some countries that are really so far ahead and that there's some way of getting more equitable distribution of the benefits of all of these breakthroughs that are occurring in so many different areas?
Sure. So I think that leads sideways nicely into what we are also excited about creating, which is the WITSA AI Centers of Excellence. So we want to build centers of excellence for artificial intelligence in 6 different continents, because we think that it's important to democratize artificial intelligence, given that it is so critical, foundational, and so transformational as well. And the powers, as well as the usefulness and benefits that accrue from artificial intelligence should not be capped to or limited to just a few elite countries. It has to find its way to more and more economies around the world. So we're members in 6 different continents. We think that each continent needs to at least have one excellence center. And so that is, for example, one way. Another means of that we work on is we would love to work, and we've done some in the past, but we want to expand some more. The work to basically bring our technology transformational activities to impact the tech ecosystems in many more emerging economies, whether these are in Africa or they're in South America or in Asia, but definitely there are many, many more ecosystems that can benefit from the work that has been done. And we are starting to see that if we do not participate and have more of them participate, there's going to be a divide, and then there's resentment. We think that if they eventually would have to suffer from the negative side of the force, the dark side of the force, why should they not also have the opportunity to be empowered by the light side?
There you go. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm just thinking about the execution of these different programs that you have. So let's say you want to set up a center of excellence in a particular region. How would that come about? Do you want government involvement? Do you want some kind of facility to act as a center there? Do you want corporates together with government to be involved, and for them to provide funding for this? And then WITSA provides the overall sort of kind of guidance and coordinating the activities of these centers of alliance. I'm just kind of brainstorming. What does that look like?
That as well as more. So, for example, we have 2 months ago, in March, we were in Brazil, and we were in Rio de Janeiro for our spring board meeting, and we had meetings with the city hall and of executives therein, with our member, CESPRO, that is the largest tech industry association in Brazil. So we're looking at establishing an AI center of excellence in Brazil as the gateway and hub into South America. So that's one example. So this framework, we've created the framework. It consists of 7 components. So AI infrastructure, data, we think is important, the entrepreneurs, for sure. And then we have talent, because talent would drive, obviously, a lot of these innovations, use cases. So verticals that it serve have to be created. AI adoption is certainly a key component. And last but not least, policy. So AI policy. Does that lead to an AI bill that becomes an act? Or how do regulations come in to help facilitate a more conducive environment is an important consideration. So 7 key components, and then we start looking at boiling down the OKRs, objectives, key results for each one that we seek. Let's just say for talent as an example. So talent is critical because it's about creating a new generation of AI savvy citizens in that region, in that country. How do we help do that? Which are the universities, the academic institutions that are local that would be a good recipient of our academic curriculum or programs and facilitations that maybe a global academic institutions that could partner with us, that we can help facilitate and bring on board in that locality, so that collectively and together we can say, here are the outputs and outcomes. How many AI engineers, how many leaders and executives are, and then what kind of development and training will have to be put in place, what kind of certification programs will then create the supply of talent that will eventually satisfy what these investments will bring. Eventually, that would then filter into the system and the ecosystem to drive all of those things we talked about, use cases, innovations, to fit into the organizations and the startups and scale-ups that are going to be formed. So then who are the players? So WITSA's role is to facilitate, coordinate, to bring together our global scale, and then impact the local and the regional partner, so that in each of these seven components of the framework, we can collectively and together generate and create those outputs and outcomes. So I gave you one talent as one example.
And that's really fascinating because I'm actually embedded in all of what you're talking about. So I mean, definitely, I serve on different sort of sovereign fund committees, and all of the things you talk about are interest there. And then I work with CEO communities, and we definitely have talent initiatives, and in fact, in AI. And on one of them, we scaled it to a national program. And the ACM and the IEEE, we have, and I'm embedded in those in these science communities, but we have a joint curriculum program to set curriculum kind of not standards, but recommendations for universities and so on to follow in their curriculum. But there's another organization called the Computer Science Teachers Association, which is a subset or suborganization, or used to be. They're an independent organization, but was originally founded and sponsored within the ACM umbrella, even though it's independent, but this would be of interest to them. And then I could see different funding entities that I work with would be interested in providing some kind of support. So whether it's government or within the UN or on the education side, or CEOs coming together, the business side of it, and CEO consortiums working together on the talent side, they would all be interested in what you're doing. I can see how your framework would really fit with what you're doing. So what you're talking about really resonates with what I'm working on anyway. So, but it's good to have an overarching framework, right? And where,
Excellent.
yes, yeah, it's a great.
Sure. I think we need to work together more closely, Stephen. So that's one example. So, and it was one subset. Obviously, within that subset itself, we need to figure out who would make a good global partner university. So obviously, there's a number from the US, from North America, from the UK, or even from China, etc. And their academic excellence, research facilities, etc., could obviously come at a certain cost. But I think if we can create a scale that is global and benefit people in emerging ecosystems, for example, in the Middle East. Next week, I have a meeting with our Egyptian member to see what can we do with regards to this AI Center of Excellence in the Middle East, in Africa. Obviously, we're members, quite a few members that are interested in Africa. So Asia has its interest levels as well. So obviously, I think some of these more advanced nations do not need them, and perhaps may even feel that they would be exporting some of these technologies, and for sure. But the world can benefit definitely from a more democratization of AI. And if this resonates with you, Stephen, I welcome you. Let's work together to see what we can do to hasten the process, because it's exciting, but it's also at the same time it's challenging.
Yeah, it's exciting, but it's a great opportunity to collaborate, right? And I believe in collaboration. I mean, it's by working together that we can have a positive impact. And there's research to indicate that 3.5% of any community, and that could be a global community, it could be a regional community, it could be a city, it could be within a school or classroom, 3.5% can drive systemic change. Let's drive that systemic change for positive outcomes and positive opportunity. And what a great way to do it is done through WITSA, right? Because you're providing the overall frameworks and you're providing the overall orchestration to allow the different stakeholders to come together to make this work, right? So, and you personally, but also with it as CEO within your organization, it's about opportunity and positive outcomes. So maybe it's a great program that you're part of and that you're driving as CEO. And I could see my audience being very interested in supporting everything you're doing. Something that I thought was really intriguing and where one of our colleagues introduced me to WITSA. This is this inaugural World Cup. Can you describe that program? Because I think that's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. So the World Congress on Innovation and Technology, the WCIT, which has been our signature platform since 1978, has often been described as the Olympics of the tech industry. And we know the Olympics, exciting as it can be, and as broad and as inclusive as it is really made out to be. At the same time, there is room for the FIFA World Cup soccer. Uh, so the world gets excited when the nations compete for honors. And so we were thinking about. I'm a football fan, soccer fan as well. So the World Cup excites me, and I think none more than the most recent one, Argentina and France in the finals. That was, man, what a show it was. So we wanted to set out something that we think is exciting as well, in which nations compete through their teams, and these teams are scale ups. So what is this? This is the opportunity. It's a catalytic platform that we're creating for tech scale ups, meaning pre-Series A funded and above, to compete in a pitching tournament. So from national, and then the two top scale ups from each nation, participating nation, go to the global finals at our WCIT. This year, the inaugural one for the WITSA World Cup is going to be in Armenia. So, and 16 countries have drawn their teams, and they will be in a pool table. So they'll be competing. 32 teams competing for the round robins that will then go into the quarterfinals, 8 teams, 4 into the semifinals, and then 2 top teams compete for the title of world champion at the grand final. So we'll see who gets to be the world champion. But the 16 countries that are there already represent all 6 continents: North America, Africa, Asia, South America, Australia, Europe. So all are all involved.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting and a great opportunity to get recognition for these scaling startups from the, you are the Global Industry Association. So that's an amazing endorsement and recognition for those who compete and also those finalists and also ultimately the winner. Um, it's what we a colleague of mine calls an omni win. Everybody wins. WITSA wins. The industry association wins. The scale ups win as well. Uh, Maybe in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, have you considered maybe raising a price for it, where you get a corporate or maybe even a government willing to provide $1 million, let's say, or something like the Earthshot Prize out of the UK? Is that part of your planning in the future? Not this year, but maybe 2 or 3 years out?
We are working hard towards getting some meaningful prizes to be made available to the world champion. So right now, so we think that for the acceleration services to the different continents is going to be an important part. So, and if we can quantify what that means, so for example, we're looking for about $250,000 of expansion and acceleration services in about 4 continents that collectively would make $1 million as the prize for the eventual winner this year. And we have currently about close to let's say halfway through our mark, and we'll be announcing them soon, and definitely in time for the grand finals. But yeah, the plan is, so it's not just the bragging rights or the cup or the medals. It is the fact that these organizations would be excellent are in excellent positions to basically be attracting more venture capital, as well as in expanding to different parts of the world to basically get help with the expansion and acceleration services that are required, as well as localization and also local staffing, office facilities. So these are the things that we want to bring on board. Connection points into the early adopters, corporations, or government. So, for example, if the winner has this innovative solution that will impact any of these industries, right now we are agnostic and we are open to all verticals. Say, for example, it comes from one specific vertical. Since you mentioned healthcare, let's just say healthcare. So the introductory opening of doors to the early adopters in the region for the healthcare industry into the local economies, our ecosystems would mean a whole lot more than just a cash price.
And that's really fascinating. I mean, I'm doing a speaking engagement at the Satel Institute in about 10 days with David Rue, is the chief medical officer for Microsoft. And he introduced me to Sally Frank, who heads up the innovation side and the startup program. What I can do post this talk is I can suggest to them maybe there's some way they can partner with you at an institutional corporate level to support this innovative program. And I think you'll get some traction. I could check internally. I'm going to see David at this conference for CEOs, as I mentioned. In fact, we're on the stage together at a fireside with the chair of the conference, and I arranged for him to be part of this conference. So I'll broach it and see if there's any interest, and if there is, I'll just join you. With them. That's right. I'll just do an introduction, and I can easily do that with Sally Ann because I just did an interview with her earlier this week, and definitely try to work with her on their startup program they have. So, okay, I'm just kind of live brainstorming ways I can help. I think what you're doing is marvelous, and maybe I can even reach into my investor community to see if I could just raise a prize period where
it'll be wonderful.
The World Cup would be you get a check for $1 million or something,
It'd be wonderful.
I'll work on
willing buyer, willing seller on a willing buyer, willing seller basis, because obviously then the valuation, how much is the valuation? The startup has to agree, and the venture capital has to agree. So we can make it conditional upon the agreement of both parties, because we don't know yet who the eventual winner is, and as well as at what valuation point are they willing to accept any investments. So that could still aspects that would have to be agreed upon, for example.
Yeah, what I'm thinking though is a non-dilutive prize, so they just get a check. So
better.
Yeah. I mean, within ACM, we have our Turing Award, and whoever wins that award gets $1 million, right? US. And
Excellent.
The Earthshot Prize, 2 of our portfolios for the World Food Program, we have an innovation accelerator. 2 of our portfolios won the £1 million Earthshot Prize. It's non-dilutive, it's just the prize. So together with the recognition, you get a check, right? And you can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't take any equity. I mean, I believe just from what you're trying to do that is possible to raise just an ongoing annual prize of a check that goes with the recognition, right? And doesn't involve equity. It's just like,
any help you can render, will be much appreciated, Stephen.
Well, I'll definitely reach out to my community and see if I can do this. And then it doesn't get complicated, right? No negotiation required. Here's a check, right?
Yes.
We're down to our last few minutes, and then it's very late for you. So I really appreciate you staying up to do this interview. Do you have any recommendations to the audience of ways they can engage or support what you're trying to do, or maybe some questions you want to pose to them?
So yeah, I think obviously www.witsa.org is our web address. So it's been rejuvenated. We now have we are working on 9 different catalytic platforms. So the most recent ones, the new ones are obviously, as we've talked about earlier, the WITSA World Cup, as well as the WITSA AI Centers of Excellence. We are excited by the opportunities that together, because they will be front and center at our signature platform, the World Congress on Innovation and Technology, happening on October 4 to 7 this year in Yerevan, Armenia. So we are expecting about 10,000 plus attendees at the event. So we look forward to welcoming people from around the region as well as different parts of the world. And this year, we think with the exciting addition of the WITSA World Cup, it will bring together even more reasons to be there, to champion for your teams, or like in soccer in the World Cup. We want there to be partisan, please be partisan, be nationalistic, cheer your team on. They can use all the support they can get, because audience participation is going to be part of that scoring as well. So yeah, we think that the world is currently entering an even more exciting phase of transformational growth, and things are happening at such a fast clip that 2 months, 100 million users, who would have imagined the kind of adoption for ChatGPT. So we are just getting started, Stephen, and together I think we can do so much more. And I think better thought for the other developing emerging ecosystems that may not have or may not be able to enjoy all of those catalytic exciting stuff that we are right now taking for granted. So it is incumbent upon us to go out there and help spread some of these cheer.
Dan, I reflected on our conversation, and you started with programming the Casio and then programming games rather than a bubble sort. And then you got into entrepreneurship with successful exits. And now you're the CEO of WITSA. So I see you really programming the world in a positive way for positive opportunity, starting with that Casio decades ago. So thank you for coming in. Just an amazing program you're leading. You have just a tremendous history of accomplishing your contribution, and you're giving back by being the CEO of a nonprofit. So that's an amazing sort of servant leader. And purpose, I call it purposeful leadership, innovation, impact, sustainable business. It covers all of it. Right? So, and then you have this Lifetime Achievement Award, which is a measure of the contributions you've made. You have the Peacock Man of the Year Award, various state honors, and is continuing. You're so respected for your contributions. So thank you for coming in and sharing your insights and the opportunities to my audience.
The pleasure. Thank you so much, Stephen. I look forward to us working together.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.